The first bullet shattered the windshield just as Abigail's convoy crested the hill overlooking Nabal's sprawling estate. She didn't scream. She had learned long ago that screaming changed nothing in Kaduna's unforgiving north. Instead, she gripped the leather seat, heart hammering against her ribs, and whispered a prayer in the split second before the second shot rang out. This wasn't a random bandit ambush. Someone had come for the company. And in that frozen moment, with glass raining across her lap like jagged diamonds, Abigail Nwosu realized two things with crystal clarity. Her husband's drunken arrogance had finally painted a target on all their backs. And the only man who could save them was the same one he had just publicly humiliated, David Okoye. In the sun-baked sprawl of Kaduna, where the Kaduna River snaked between ancient farmlands and the new glass towers of the industrial district, Abigail had learned to carry the weight of Nabal's empire on her own shoulders. Nabal Agro Exports wasn't just a company, it was a kingdom of sorghum fields, maize silos, and cattle ranches that stretched towards Zaria. They exported grains and premium kilishi to Lagos and beyond. But everyone in the boardroom knew the truth. Abigail was the one who ran it. She negotiated with the Hausa farmers at dawn, smoothed over bandit raids with the security firms, and kept the books from bleeding red when Nabal's rages scared off buyers. Nabal himself was a big man with a bigger temper, the kind who wore bespoke kaftans stitched with gold thread and still smelled of last night's whiskey and suya. He had married her 10 years ago when she was 25, fresh out of Ahmadu Bello University with a first class in business administration. Her family had been poor but respectable Christians from the southern part of the state. His money had seemed like answers to prayers, but it had become a cage. He mocked her in front of the staff, derisively. "My little wife thinks she's the CEO because she can add numbers," then crawled into her bed at midnight, reeking of other women, demanding what he called my dues as an African man. She had endured the slaps that left bruises hidden under her Ankara wrappers, the nights she cried in the bathroom so the house girls wouldn't hear. But she stayed, for the company, for the farmers who depended on them, for the version of herself that still believed loyalty could outlast cruelty. That changed the day David's convoy rolled up the long gravel drive to the estate. David Okoye was 34, former army captain turned founder of Shield Guard Solutions, the most respected private security outfit in northern Nigeria. His men had been protecting Nabal's farms for 18 months without full payment, chasing off bandit gangs that rode in on motorcycles with AKs. David had sent polite emails, then formal letters proposing a merger. Shield Guard's logistics tech and armed escorts folded into Nabal Agro, creating a single powerhouse that could dominate West African supply chains. A partnership, his last message had read, not a takeover. "We've bled together, let's build together." Nabal had replied with a voice note, drunk at 2 a.m., voice thick with contempt, scoffing. "Tell that small boy soldier his boys are glorified watchmen. I don't need his protection or his cheap Lagos ambition. If he wants my company, he can come and take it with his toy guns. Foolish man." He'd forwarded the note to half the Kaduna Chamber of Commerce, laughing like it was a joke. The message reached Abigail while she was in the processing plant, sleeves rolled up over her simple lilac hijab-style headscarf, tasting a new batch of spiced kilichi. Her phone buzzed. Her stomach dropped. She knew David's reputation. Quiet, ruthless when crossed, but fair. And she knew what her husband had just done. The merger wasn't optional anymore. It was war. And then the ambush incident where they were shot at. She had fought for calm when Nabal had hushed her up in favor of hearing from the drivers and bodyguards. He didn't ask if she was all right. He had slid his sharp eyes over her and evidently, seeing that she was alive and well, said with a dismissive snort, annoyed, "We will be more on guard. They'll soon know they can't bring us down." And that was the moment it dawned on her that if she didn't take matters into her own hands, she and their staff and even the company were as good as dead. It was only a matter of time. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she moved like a woman possessed. By sunrise, 3 refrigerated trucks were loaded, coolers of fresh tuwo shinkafa and pounded yam wrapped in cellophane, pots of miam kuka, thick with baobab and spinach, pots of fragrant egusi soup for an alternative, baskets of masa, and crates of premium dried kilichi, and most important, leather folders containing revised merger terms she had spent the night drafting. She wore a tailored navy bubu with silver embroidery that caught the light like water, her wedding ring still on her finger like a shackle. In the rear-view mirror of her armored SUV, her eyes looked exhausted but determined. She had put up enough. David's temporary headquarters was a modest but heavily guarded compound on the outskirts near the airport road. When her convoy arrived, his men parted like a sea. She stepped out, the dry harmattan wind tugging at her clothes, and there he was, standing on the veranda in a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, the scar on his jaw from some forgotten battle catching the morning sun. Their eyes met across the dusty courtyard. Something electric passed between them, sharp as a live wire. Abigail felt it in her chest, a sudden warmth she hadn't known in years. He was taller than she had imagined, broad-shouldered, but carrying himself with the quiet grace of a man who had seen too much death to waste time on arrogance. David's gaze lingered, on her face, on the way she held her head high despite everything, and for the first time in a decade, she felt seen. Not as Nabal's ornament, not as the company's hidden engine, just her. Calmly, in a low voice, "Mrs. Nwosu," he said, using her husband's surname, like a question. "I wasn't expecting you." She walked straight to him, close enough to smell sandalwood and gun oil. "Mr. Okoye, David, I won't mince words. I'm representing my husband because he's a fool. But I'm not here to beg. I'm here to save both our companies from his stupidity." Inside the simple meeting room, she laid everything out on the table while his men unpacked the food. The aroma of peppered kilishi and the earthy scent of tuwo filled the air. She spoke without notes, voice calm but threaded with raw honesty. 50-50 equity after valuation. Your tech integrated into our supply chain and a board seat for you. I've already signed my half. The only thing missing is your name. David watched her. His eyes traced the faint shadow of exhaustion under her lashes, the way her hands trembled once when she mentioned Nabal's name. "Your husband humiliated me in front of men who've taken bullets for his farms," he said. "I came here ready to bury him in regulators and lawsuits. But you come with food and a better deal than he ever deserved. Why?" Abigail's voice cracked for the first time. "I've spent 10 years cleaning up his messes. 10 years of being called stupid in public while I saved the company in private. 10 years of..." Swallows. "I'm tired, David. But I won't let him destroy what we've all bled for. Not you, not the farmers, not me." The room went still. Outside, a generator hummed. Inside, something shifted between them, attraction blooming raw and undeniable. His hand brushed hers, reaching for the same folder. Neither pulled away. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, the kind of look that carried years of unspoken longing. She saw in him the steadiness she had prayed for. He saw in her the fire no man had ever been allowed to fan. That afternoon, word reached the estate. Nabal, in a drunken rage at the news of her visit, had collapsed, clutching his chest. Heart attack. By evening, he was gone. Abigail stood at the hospital window watching the Kaduna lights flicker on, tears cutting clean tracks down her face. Not for the man who had broken her, but for the girl she had once been, the one who had believed marriage would be safety. She felt hollow and free at the same time. 3 months later, after the mourning period and the quiet legal transfer of the company, David came to her family home in the old Christian quarters of Kaduna. No bodyguards this time, just him, in a simple white kaftan,
carrying a small basket of fresh mangoes like an ordinary suitor. They sat on the veranda under a mango tree, the same one she had cried under as a bride. Rough with feeling. "I didn't come for the company," he said. "I came for the woman who walked into my compound like a queen and offered me grace I didn't deserve. Abigail, I've wanted you since the moment you looked at me like I was more than a threat. But I waited. I needed you to know it was never about the merger." She reached for his hand, thumb tracing the scar on his knuckle. Softly. I felt it too, that first second, like God had finally answered a prayer I was too ashamed to speak. "I've put up with so much, David. I'm scared to want this, but I do." He pulled her close, forehead against hers, the evening call to prayer drifting faintly from a distant mosque. Whispering, "Then let's build something new, together. No more cages." 6 weeks later, they married in a quiet ceremony at the Kaduna Baptist Church. It was somewhat surreal for Abigail looking up at David in his handsome suit as she wore the lace wedding dress with the sweetheart neckline she had chosen. She didn't want to make comparisons with the past, but she felt very blessed. The reception spilled into the compound. Plates of jollof and fried rice, tuwo and miya passed hand to hand, laughter rising with the smell of grilling suya. When they danced under string lights, slow and close, the attraction that had sparked in that dusty courtyard burned steady and sure. Abigail rested her head on David's shoulder and whispered, contentedly, "I used to run everything alone. Now I get to run it with someone who sees me." He kissed her temple, warmly. "And I get to protect what's mine, not because I have to, but because I finally found someone worth every battle." In Kaduna, where the old and new collided every day, Abigail and David's merged lives became legend, not of conquest, but of wisdom, endurance, and the kind of love that turned a near disaster into a future neither of them had dared to dream of. If you're still here, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and share. Like Abigail, have you ever had to step up to save a situation? Let's pray to have her discernment and diplomacy in dealing with people. We never know where that wisdom will take us. See you in the next video.